Hello everyone, my name's Mark Williams. I'm the Research Director at MHR, and today I'm going to be talking about a practical guide to HR and AI. There's four things I'm going to talk about today. One is, what is AI? The other is privacy, bias, and then we're going to do some demos around what I'd call augmented HR. So what is AI? Well, there's two types of AI. One is called strong AI or general AI, and that is kind of sci-fi version of artificial intelligence that you know, so thinking like a human being. The other is weak AI, which is more like a chess computer. So with strong AI, it's exactly how we think. With weak AI, it's just a single essence of chess, but I can't then go and do other things. I can only do that. And how weak AI works, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is around machine learning. So it's all about training and about pushing a lot of data through, and eventually the computer starts to work out what the decision is. So here we've got an image recognition set. So if I was trying to teach the computer what's the difference between a cat and a dog, I'd be putting through millions of photos of cats and dogs, and then saying this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a cat, and eventually the computer starts to learn how that works and makes a decision, a guess for itself. And it ends up being a kind of evolving maths inside the bit that makes that decision. And it happens generally in server rooms of Google and big corporations, where the computer then, in terms of how the AI games work, the computers play each other, and it can iterate many, many times. But obviously that's different for people. When you take AI out of that world and put it towards people, it becomes a bit more like eugenics, or the danger can be, it becomes a bit more like eugenics, because you're using algorithms to choose people rather than for the humanness to bubble up. And people are complicated, and at work we want to make people of all types thrive rather than a particular algorithmic human. So we need to talk about privacy then. So privacy is really important with artificial intelligence because it can have effects outside of your personal life and your work life. Privacy is often thought of as, so I haven't got a problem with privacy because I've done nothing wrong, I've got nothing to hide. And in one sense that's right. Legally, in an old sense, you have got nothing to hide, and therefore this isn't a problem for you. But there are more things than legal issues. You might have a reputational issue, you might be, as soon as privacy is kind of, what people think about you is networked, then everything changes, because what you do in one particular situation can then be known about right across your whole career. In a work situation, it doesn't have to be very complicated. I could be, there could be a kind of hip startup company and I'm quite straight, so I go into that company and I don't fit in, there's no cultural fit. But that's seen as a bad thing. And then that tarnishes my reputation from then on, and the other way. If I'm easygoing and I like to laugh and I'm in quite a straight company, that could tarnish it from then on for me. So privacy then, it becomes the freedom to be imperfect, and that's it, that imperfect is contextual really. It's also the freedom to be human. And why is that so important for us? Well, it's important because the jobs of the future that aren't going to be automated are going to be about creativity, about kind of people who don't fit in the normal sense. What we need then, and what we don't currently have, is a kind of privacy gauge where it's easy to see where the data is going, much like a fridge, you know, how good it is or how costly it is in terms of privacy. And this isn't an idea of mine, this is Timon Shep, who's a Dutch privacy researcher. The next thing I want to talk about then is bias. And as in all things, technology can have a bias from one scale to another, much like the pH scale. But we expect it to be neutral, which is true in that it's not got our own bias, but it has got the bias of the person who's written it, an invisible man, and it is normally a man somewhere in the background who's written it. Now you could get Gandhi or you could get Donald Trump, but that's where it's not only our bias, but the bias of the person who's written it kind of kicks in. So when people say technology removes the bias of humans, yes it does, but it also has a behind-the-scenes bias of its own. And normally that's from, in terms of technology, from a kind of West Coast, white, male point of view, where technology is what has significantly improved, saved your life. You can owe everything to it, and therefore you think technology can solve all the world's problems. It's kind of techno-utopian in that sense. We think that any power structure can be overpowered from it. Which means that it tends to be a little over-ambitious. And so when we look at AI, when applied to real people, we look at the tools that can come about and you think, I'm not sure this is appropriate. I'm going to take an example. So this is a recruitment tool that uses facial recognition to tell whether you're honest or trustworthy. So you may be sitting in an interview, you'll have a camera on you, and it will work out through micro gestures whether you're somebody who they want to work for you. Now, the picture that we're showing here is from a Guardian article, which has the same kind of AI for whether you can tell you're gay or not. So these are much bigger issues than whether you want a job, and the AI is overstepping its mark again. So when we look at this technology, we've got to be thinking back to the training example. Who has it been trained on? Is it just white people? Does it take into any account of disability? If I have a kind of facial tic? These are the things, because we are legally responsible for the decisions that are made from this piece of software, we need to be very careful how it's set up for us. And also, if you're a Black Mirror fan, you may remember on Nosedive, the episode where the lady's wanting to go and get 5-star ratings for everything. You will be able to game the system by keeping a fixed expression. And also the behaviour of the person who's being recruited might change based on the fact that they've got a camera pointed at them. So in our practical AI shopper kind of checklist, there are a number of things that I would like you to have a look at if you're buying some AI. Firstly, what is the ultimate conclusion of these tools? Secondly, could it be purposefully incorrect or just shoddily done? So it might not be nefarious on my part, I might just not have the data or the models behind it. Can it be gamed by inflict smile or create a feedback loop? Can anybody explain exactly how it works? In that maths in the middle there, can we work that out? Because if we can't, then it might be difficult to fix. Has it been independently verified? So is there a research, kind of independent research arm? Can the maths be changed? And what is happening to the data? So back to the privacy again. Is it being sold? Are you the product, or are you buying the service? And also, is it networked out to other people? Let's do some demos. Now, this is a guy called Frank Stellark, who was a performance artist in the 1990s, and this is what augmented looked like back then. But obviously, we've all got phones, we've all got laptops, so we can think about augmented in a different way now. So the three demos I'm going to show you. One is Textio, another one is a tool called Knack, and then the third one is People First Chatbot from MHR.
Textio is a pioneering artificial intelligence system that contains a predictive engine that will change the way you write forever. Let me show you how it works. Our first product, Textio Talent, is really made for hiring managers and recruiters. Companies that have been using Textio for recruiting already have found that they get a more diverse group of applicants. Anyone can use Textio instantly. Just sign into the website and start typing. Or you can open a saved document from your Textio library. Next to your document, you'll see your Textio score. It shows how successful your job listing will be compared to others in the same industry and location. Purple and blue phrases statistically attract more women or men to apply for your job. The tone info next to your document helps you track the overall tone of your writing. And Textio includes alternate suggestions for many of these words that will help you meet your diversity goals. Textio's predictive engine is based on outcomes data from over 250 million documents. And growing. Textio learns from these job listings and, as you type, predicts how well the job listing you are writing will compete for talent. We use an amazing combination of machine learning, natural language processing, and learning loops so that our engine knows exactly what language works and what doesn't. So this is it. This is how Textio's predictive engine is changing recruiting, giving those who use it a huge advantage in competing for talent in their industries.
What I like about Textio is that it allows us to see our bias. The job descriptions go in and you are seeing whether you're writing too masculine or too feminine. So it helps us to learn, to kind of self-learn about it. Rather than just being taken somewhere else, we never reflect on what we've said. Another otherworldly AI deals with it. And this is a kind of thread that we'll go through our own products too. The next product I want to show you is called Knack. Knack is what I would call a post-CV recruitment tool. We all know that CVs are pretty useless in terms of what actually do they give us about a candidate. That's really interesting because it turns what you should be able to do for this particular job into a game and then cross-references whether you're actually any good at it or not. Really useful for uncovering talent, hidden talent, rather than people who talk a good game. So quick demo of how it works. So here we've got three what they would call knacks. So in order to do this particular demo job, I need to be logical. So the finance thing, I need to get things done, and I need to thrive on feedback. I'll show you the game in a second, but ultimately how it comes through is much like a normal recruitment. I get a list of applicants, but rather than having to trawl through their CVs, it shows me how good they are at the games. So if we go and have a look at the games, it's basically three games here. One of them is about emotional intelligence, one of them's loosely about logic, and the other one's about throwing balloons. I'm not quite sure what we get out of that one. But I'm going to play the logic one, just a quick example. What's interesting is Knack is it's not just doing the game, it's how long you size up, what to do, whether you go in quickly. It's testing all sorts of things about you as a person along the way. Some of them are impossible. If you're very good at it, it'll give you an impossible game and see how long you try at it. How quickly do I quit out? So although these three quite simple games, that what gets pulled together is a lot of stuff about you that you expose in gaming that you wouldn't do in a normal interaction. This is cross-referenced with the validation studies. So they do validation of people who are actually doing these jobs and the personalities that they've got, and make sure that those two things fit together. So in terms of how the training happens, there's a lot of people going through, but what they do is then take people who can do the jobs and then cross-reference the gaming data with them. The last thing I want to show you is the People First Chatbot from MHR. I launch it. Now here I can just do some small talk, so I can say if you're okay, and it replies. I can also clock in and clock out. That was a short shift. I can book holidays. Book a holiday for next Friday. I can take pictures of my expenses. I haven't got a bill with me now, but I'm just going to take a picture. And the chatbot behind the scenes works out what it is that I'm looking at, and that's what we use for expenses and bills and stuff. But what I wanted to show today is how it can augment our learning, our self-learning. So what happens is at the end of every day in the research chatbot, it sends out a list of questions. So I'm going to get it to send it out. And this is called a daily reconstruction method. So what we really need is a way of reflecting back on the day that is quick as possible. So you can do it in 10 seconds, but the next time I reflect in a check-in, it's got enough in it so that I can remember. So I add to diary, and then it gives me a list of 15 things about the day. So I can say, how do I feel about today's work? I choose some options, and then I can put in any kind of text. Now this is all private data. So when I go back into my diary, I can see that hasn't gone anywhere. That's just for me. So again, we're covering the private data so it's on the device, it hasn't been sent anywhere. But when it comes to my check-in then, we use the model so an AI model that has been put on the phone, takes that private data and puts it into numbers effectively. So nobody gets to know what I've said, but we get a kind of general idea as to how it's going on. So I'm just going to send it now. Press my check-in. It's asking me what I would like to talk about. So I put in a talking point for my check-in. And then here's where the onboard model is taking all that private data and turning it into a data point about flow. So I can then send that data. So again, we've got that kind of augmented HR where it is helping us to self-reflect, but they're not creating a feedback loop. So obviously I wouldn't send my private data to the employer because it might have been a bad day. And if it did send it in a raw way, there would be a feedback loop where I would stop behaving in that way, I'd stop being honest. So so the fact that it's private and the fact that the model itself is on the phone is a better way of doing it. It means more people are going to use it, but actually the usefulness of it is still real for the employer. Augmented HR is a real opportunity for technology to help self-awareness, as us as recruiters, as us as employees, or just for ourselves. The important thing is to follow the data to see whether it's just our private data, is it held just within this service, or is it networked out? And think through any feedback loops that might happen. Would this kind of behaviour make people change their behaviour? Again, with the interview facial recognition. Be hopeful about AI, but pragmatic, and tend to err on the side of caution, because these are powerful tools that we are legally responsible for, and they're a bit green. And so when we get the next generation, it'll be much easier for normal people to have an informed choice. So for now, we just need to err on the side of caution. That's it from me. Thank you very much.